You are now listening to the Do It Movement podcast, where we share our experiences in real estate investing and encourage you to take action. You don't want to miss what we have in store today, so let's welcome our host, Martine Richardson, and our co-host, Eubanks.
What's up today, Do It Movement listeners? This is your host, Martine Richardson, your buy and hold coach. I am joined today with my co-hosts, Eubanks and Tilisa Stubbs. How are you doing today, Tilisa?
Doing fantastic. I cannot complain. Things have just been aligning the way that I intended it to align for these last 3 months. And so I can't complain. I'm excited to be here and share my knowledge with you and your audience.
I love it.
We're so excited to have you. We've just been following a lot that you're doing, and I mean, just amazing journey. Could you tell our audience a little bit about how you got into real estate and what you're working on?
Yeah, I would love to. I think that the biggest issue that a lot of real estate investors or aspiring real estate investors have is, where do I find the capital? How do I find deals? How do I know what's a good deal? And so I started off very similarly. I came from the accounting corporate background, not really knowing much about real estate, but I got burnt out from going to this 9 to 5 every single day, having these subordinates be, not so respectful. You've got this young Black, director of accounting, and, that has its perks, but it also has its pitfalls as well. And so I just got tired of the mundane. And one day I just went into my office and I just told my CFO that I was resigning. I really didn't have a plan. I just knew that I wanted to get into real estate investing. At the time, I started off wholesaling. And so everybody was just like, oh, you can get into wholesaling without any of your own money. And, you can bring in like $20,000 assignment fees. And so I was like, oh, I could do this. I can quit my job and just start wholesaling. And I found out very quickly that wholesaling is a job and it does cost money, especially when you're having to pull leads and you need a VA and you need to have all these fancy software. And so I learned the hard way that I needed to have money to start this business. And me personally, I ended up depleting all of my funds. We pulled money out of our 401k when we left. I sold my house just so that we had enough capital to get into this business. And within like 8 months, I was like completely broke. And, I didn't have the credit because I was using credit cards to pay bills. And so I was forced to learn how to purchase real estate creatively, which is how I got into subject to. And I was forced to learn how to raise private money because I didn't have no money. So, and now I teach others how to do the same thing. So that's just a little bit of a backstory without getting too far into it.
That's amazing. What a journey. The struggle that you face really makes it happen, makes you sink or swim. You feel that hustle, you got to jump in. What helped you get over that hump when you were going through it? Like, what helped you get out of it and push forward?
There was a couple of different factors. I think one, because at the time I was so prideful, and I had told everybody in my family, like, I'm going to be a real estate investor and I'm going to be doing this. And everybody had their concerns like, Tilisa, you went to school to get your MBA. Like, you did the thing. You got into the accounting. It's like they were doubting what I could do. And so that kind of like, I want to prove y'all wrong,
Yes.
That was a big factor. But after that kind of died off, and I got to the point where I'm like, I don't really care what people think. Once I got to that point, I think the thing that fueled me is that I want to make my kids proud.
Mm.
I want to create something better for them so that they don't have to struggle. And so that kind of just pushed me. And then I remember a time where I was sitting in the bathroom. This is about the time where I was just like, oh my God, I'm broke. My credit's horrible. And I was sitting in the bathroom and I was just like bawling my eyes out, like, God, how did I get here? Like, did I make a mistake? And having to go outside the bathroom and make sure that my eyes and my face was clear to like face my kids. I was like, I cannot let them down. Like, I have to do this. And so, my encouragement to people is you're going to have hard times. You are going to go through like the struggle bus. But if you consistently persist and continue to go towards those goals, you'll find out that you're so much stronger in the end and you're able to face any adversity that comes to you. Some people crack and some people crumble, but others persevere, and it will elevate you to the top if you just stay in the game. And so, yeah.
Mm.
That's amazing.
I just wanted to add one thing. I've heard people say that if you just stay in it long enough, you'll stumble on success. You just got to keep at it. So that's a good
Yeah,
point.
it's inevitable, you know?
Well, it's amazing how much you have grown to where you're at today. And, I've heard you speak at a few different events, and one thing that I've taken away from your journey is that you just raise private money even on the Uber ride. Like you made a private lender out of an Uber ride. Like, who does that? So you are so comfortable at raising money, and I know a lot of people have a hard time asking for private funds to invest when we don't realize that the private funds need us to help work the money, like we're helping them. So how did you get that gift? How did you perfect that, in asking for what you need?
You know what? And I think I said this at one of the events that I spoke at, is that I don't ask people for money. That's like the last thing that I do. I have conversations with people and I'm a people person. So as I'm having conversations with people, people always want to know, like, what do you do? And I share with them what I do. I'm a real estate investor. Allow people just like you to invest their funds with me and earn double-digit returns. And so when I just kind of talk about what I do in like third person, the person on the opposite end is like, well, how do I get into that? Like, if I mean, I don't want to be a real estate investor, but I do want to put my money to work. Like, how can I be one of your private money lenders? And so it's just a matter of getting comfortable talking about what you do and what you offer to your current investors. I do use a strategy, and I'll give this to your audience, and I share it with my students. It's called G Ford. So G Ford, the G stands for geography, the F stands for family, the O is occupation, the R is recreation, and the D is dream. And so when I'm going through these conversations, I'm very intentional about how I'm structuring the conversation. So I may start off by saying, oh my God, I hear an accent. Where are you from? And then it starts a conversation about where they're from. That's that geography piece. People love to talk about where they're from. And then I get into that F, which is, so are you married? Do you have kids? People like to just talk about themselves. So when you structure it that way, it doesn't seem like a salesy pitch or anything. It just seems like you're trying to get to know people. Normally, when I get to the O and I start talking about occupation, after that, they're asking me, well, okay, like, well, what do you do? Sometimes I don't even get to the R or the D. Sometimes we get through occupation and they're like, oh man, like I want to do that. Not every person's going to want to be a private money lender, but you can kind of gauge the conversation. And so I teach my students to follow this framework. And I would say about 80% of the time, they're setting up a call with this individual to tell them more about their opportunities and how they can help them earn double-digit returns.
Wow. That's powerful. I hope everyone wrote that down
I
because
know.
I'm going to be practicing that this weekend.
I just told Chat GPT to write the notes down for me so I can start using it.
Better make sure you take that one. Well, that's
Yes.
amazing. I love that. And you mentioned your students. And so can you talk about the coaching journey and how you've impacted other people through it?
Yeah. So, I started off just wanting to keep this information to myself. And as I was closing more deals and raising more money, and obviously you guys see that I post stuff on social media, people were just inboxing me and emailing me like, hey, can you teach me this? And what I found was that people wanted to get into this space, especially like the creative finance space. I think a lot of people's dilemma, a lot of the people that I coach, is like either they don't have the credit. So even though they want to be in real estate, they can't go out and get a hard money loan because the hard money lender is requiring you to have a certain credit score, or they're requiring you to have a certain amount of money in your bank account. So when I was talking just on social media saying I'm closing on these properties with zero of my own money, 2 to 3% interest rate mortgages, not having to use my own credit, that appealed to an audience that was attracted to me. And so now I teach them how to do the exact same thing. And I mean, it's amazing what these students have been able to do. It's amazing to see them step outside of their comfort zone. I mean, complete introverts. Like, Tilisa, I don't talk to people. Like, I'm the kind of person that when I'm on the airplane, I plug my earphones in. I don't want to hear nobody. I don't want to talk to nobody. And because of our coaching, now they're more intentional and they're like, when I'm sitting on an airplane, like I'm going to use G Forward. I'm not going to just put my earplugs in my ear. And they surprise themselves. You know, I had a lady just last night tell me that she just raised $250,000 from having a conversation with somebody at one of her kids' games. Like, when I tell you that you can raise money anywhere and everywhere, the biggest thing is that people, the reason why there aren't more private money lenders out here is because they just don't know about it. And so the moment that we start educating people about this option, people are already trying to figure out a way to invest their money. They're trying to invest in the stocks. They're trying to invest in Bitcoin. They're trying to invest in gold. People are already looking for ways to invest. And when you tell them, like, I can give you a 10 to 12% return backed by a real estate asset, like that perks their ears up. You know, you're protected with a promissory note. You have a deed of trust. You are on the insurance, like all of those different protections. You're not getting that in the stock market. You know, and so it's like the more that they see that, man, it doesn't matter where I'm at. I can be at a grocery store. I can be on an airplane. I can be in my Lyft. I tell them, get your brain out of somebody else's pockets because you don't know what they have. A lot of them are like, how are you able to raise private money from a Lyft driver? Like, they're driving Lyft. Like, isn't that they're like, they don't have any money. Like, if they would, wouldn't they be working a regular job? And I'm like, no, there's people who are retired who, you know, have tons of money sitting in accounts and they just want to do Lyft and Uber so that way they can keep an interaction with people. Like, take your brain out of their pockets. You don't know what they got. It's just your job to educate them. And so that's what we've been able to do in my coaching program. I like to call it a family because at the end of the day, like, we are all family. That's what it feels like. So, yeah.
Wow, that was so powerful. I love that. Thank you for sharing. That's amazing. And now they're probably teaching their family and that whole mindset is so powerful to really get to that level where you're comfortable sharing. That brings me to my next question. As you know, I Facebook stalked you yesterday and I was so impressed on everything that you share, your confidence, the marketing. I mean, just how did you get that confidence to really put it out there? I mean, you're amazing.
Oh my goodness. I just want to let y'all in on a little secret. I have like the biggest case of imposter syndrome that you could ever imagine. So when you see me out here on these social media streets, it is not easy. Like, sometimes I will record something multiple times because I'm just like, nope, that one doesn't look good. Nope, my face looks weird on that one. Nope, I sound weird on that. So, but at some point you just have to post it. And so sometimes I will just post it and I will walk away from social media for a couple days because I'm just like, I don't want to even hear what people have to say about that. And then I get on, I'm like, oh, that was a pleasantly surprising response. And so my biggest advice is just put yourself out there. You have to get to a point where you're just like, you know what? I do not care what other people think. At the end of the day, people are looking at your social media as your resume. And so the same way that you would be creating a resume and sending that to a bunch of employers, like, it is your job as a real estate investor to put your resume out on social media. You are doing people a disservice by not doing so. So I'm not confident all the time. And I think that's the key, doing it even when you're scared.
Mm.
Yeah, I really think you brought up a key point because you're telling people that you're doing a disservice if you aren't sharing your journey to other people. And when you start thinking about it like that, you aren't being so selfish and thinking, well, I don't want people to look at me a certain type of way. At the end of the day, it really isn't about you. It's about who you can help. So I think I don't want people to miss out on that, because you don't know who you're gonna help. A lot of someone else's dreams are dependent on ours. So if you don't share what you're doing, just think of how many people that could have got to where they needed to be, but you didn't share what you did. So I just think it's huge, and I don't want people to overlook it, because Talisa's giving us some gems. I think y'all need to rewind this podcast, because if you didn't know G Ford before this, I think you need to start implementing that in your strategy as well. But I want to ask you about your first deal. How did that look? Because I know my first deal, it looked a mess, but I made lots of money, so it didn't matter.
Yes. So my first deal, and this is something that I advise for anybody who's afraid to do this alone. I actually partnered with a couple of other experienced investors on my first deal. And this is the beauty in learning a specific skill set where you can add value to somebody, because the deal was actually in a little apartment complex. It was a fourplex. And the investors that had it under contract, they were able to negotiate some creative terms. So the property was like $650,000. The previous owner was like this young kid who had purchased it like a year or two ago, and he had no idea how to manage a small apartment complex. And so he was looking to sell it, and he couldn't sell it for retail price just because there wasn't enough equity in the deal yet, right? And so when the investors that I met, when they spoke to the seller, they were able to negotiate seller finance terms where we were able to take over his current mortgage, and we were also able to pay him a monthly payment for the additional equity that he wanted. And so it was a combination of seller financing and subject to. If you're not familiar with any of those concepts, ask ChatGPT, they'll tell you. Ultimately, the seller only wanted $50,000 down, and he gave us a 0% interest on the seller financed portion. The subject to portion, we got like a 3.5 interest rate. That's the mortgage that we took over. And so when everything was said and done, all we really needed to raise was like $100,000, which was his $50,000 down, the closing cost, the agent's commission. And then I needed to raise like an additional 50,000 because we wanted to renovate 2 of the units so that we could bring the rents up. And so they already had it under contract. They had already had all the terms negotiated, but they didn't have any money, right? And they were about to lose the contract. And so when I met them, I was like, well, if I can raise the money for this deal, will you guys give me an equity stake? And they were like, heck yeah. And it was a nice chunky piece of equity. And so I went out there and I did my thing. And that first deal that we closed, only thing that I brought was the capital. Yeah. And so for those of you who are like, I don't want to do this alone. I don't really know what I'm doing. Maybe you ought to just find a group of investors who are more skilled in one area, but you need to bring some sort of value and skill yourself. I think too many times people try to get into deals without putting any skin in the game, and skin in the game is not always money. But what's your skill set? What do you
Your sound went out, but if you could just repeat what you just said, they'll cut that off. Your skin in the
Okay.
game. Repeat that part.
Yeah, so I think most of the time people want to know like what's your skin in the game, and that right there is like you finding a skill set and becoming an expert in it. You will add value to somebody else's deal to where they won't mind doing a JV with you. But it's just like when you try to come and you're just like, I want a piece of the pie, but you don't bring anything. It's just like, I mean, come on. We have
What
to be able to.
I'm over thinking, what do we need you for if you're
Yeah.
bringing
Right,
anything?
right, exactly. So invest in yourself, take a coaching program, learn how to raise private money, learn how to find creative deals, learn how to underwrite, learn a valuable skill set that you can bring to somebody else's table that can help you to expand in your own professional career.
So for that deal specifically, like what was the exit strategy for that? Was it to just cash flow? Was it to bring the rents up and sell it? What was the exit strategy on that?
Yeah, so the exit strategy was just to cash flow. So when we bought that property, it was only cash flowing about $900 a month. And so after we were done doing our renovations and everything, we were cash flowing a little over $3,200 a month after all expenses. Yeah, he wasn't charging market rents. He wasn't
Mm.
renting to the right tenants. And so we did a complete like overhaul and we're able to get that cash flow up. And so we'll probably sell it in like the next 7 years. Hopefully by that time it will be worth like around 1.5 million. We bought it for 650,000. So in the long game, we do plan to sell it and make our money back. But in the meantime, it cash flows beautifully, and that was our goal.
So these lenders that you're raising money from, because you are teaching people how to lend, it sounds like, they stay in deals longer. Because I know the reason I'm asking this question is because I coach people on how to buy and hold properties, and a lot of the private lenders we use, I don't know, maybe we assume want to be in the deal about a year or less. So these people that you are coaching, or you are not necessarily coaching, but teaching how to get their money to work, are you, I guess, teaching them that, hey, I need someone that wants to put their money into this long term, or how does that look? Because for me, hearing that someone put their money in the deal for 7 years is unbelievable.
Oh yeah. I think it's all about how you frame the initial conversation. Because when I started off with my private money journey, my coach was basically telling me like, yeah, we're going to hold their money for 12 months and this is that and the other. And so initially when I was talking to people, I was telling them like, yeah, you'll be in the deal 12 months. But then when I realized like my exit strategy really isn't me holding on to your money for 12 months doesn't really benefit my exit strategy. And so I began to change my conversation. And so when I began to change my conversation, I would tell them like majority of our private money lenders are in the deal anywhere between 3 to 7 years. And so when I would reach out to them like, hey, we've got this lending opportunity. It's a 3-year term. Let me know if you're in. They didn't know anything. They don't know any better,
Right.
right? And we're not targeting people who are in the real estate game, because that's what you can find is that when you're raising private money, there are certain people or institutions that say that they're private money lenders, but they're like, I want, 12 months with a 15-year interest with 2 points. And it's like, okay, you know too much about, you're not my ideal private money lender. My
Right.
ideal private money lender is a retired physical therapist who's got $120,000 in her 401k, and she just wants to put it to work because right now it's only earning 2% interest and she can't pull it out for another 10 years anyways. And when I present my deal to her, it's the ideal scenario that she wants to be in. And so these are not real estate experts that we're targeting. Like I said, these are regular everyday people where I am the authority in the space. They don't know any better, right? And
And
those are the
then
people
like
that we target.
Right. And then, like, also, this is probably very beneficial for people that they don't want to keep looking for the next deal, looking for the next deal. They just want their
Yeah.
money to make some interest, because that's very active to keep looking for the next deal. So
Yeah.
I can see how you could be valuable and an asset to people that are trying to just want their money to start working and to keep working. So I can
Yeah.
see how that could be a benefit for sure. So
Yeah.
I have a question for you. What is a resource that you can share with the audience? I want to, preface this question with, this is the Do It Movement podcast. We want people to take
Yep.
action on what they're hearing in this episode. So what is a resource that you feel like was really a game changer for you? It could be a book or something that really just helped you get to where you are right now.
You know what? And I know that people talk about this book all the time, but the book that changed my entire mindset was Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. That was the big one, seeing how as an employee and as like just like a business owner, I'm never really going to be able to like take my time back. Like becoming an investor was the most appropriate or the most alignable way to like get into this space. And so when I looked at things from an investor perspective, like, okay, my assets can make me money. Like, I don't actually have to be actively doing the thing, right? But then I was like, but how do I empower others to feel that same way? So my private money lenders, they get to sit back, relax, and watch their returns come in, backed off that real estate asset. Me, myself, once I get the property up and going, I'm able to do the same thing. So I felt like we were empowering each other to be that investor that the book talks about. And so I would say that if you haven't read that book, read that book because it will change your mindset. And I mean, ultimately put you in a place where you can get your time freedom back. Because ultimately, that's what I wanted. I just wanted my time freedom back. I want to be able to go hang out with my kids on a Wednesday and not have to worry about me having to clock in. I want to be able to travel during the school year and not have to wait until summers to actually go to Hawaii with my family. And so that would be a big thing. And then I would just say that whatever it is that you want to do, find a coach. There is a huge learning curve when it comes to investing. I mean, you've got to learn how to underwrite the deals. You need to learn how to find the deals. You need to learn how to get the money. You can reduce so much of your time by just going to a coach who's already done all this. They've already experienced all the downfalls and the pitfalls. So it's just like, find somebody who's doing exactly what you're trying to do, pay them because you need to invest in yourself and like expedite your journey. So that would be the two biggest things that I would say.
Well, Coach Martine couldn't agree more.
Okay.
So if people are like interested and they want to find out more about your coaching family, how can they, I guess, reach out to you? What's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, so if they just go to my website, my company is called Her Investments. If they just go to herinvestments.org, they can look at some of the things that we've done. They can book a call. They can enroll in the course directly. And so, yeah, that's going to be her, investments with an S.org.
Okay, okay. Well, before we wrap this up and give our contact information, Lori, does anybody else have anything else they'd like to share?
I just want to say very grateful for you sharing, all the tips and tricks and, your time to come on and share, a little bit about, how you get your confidence. I just think a lot of people will benefit from it. So thank you for joining us.
Thank
Yes,
you. And
thank
I
you.
just want
You
to, oh,
go
go
ahead, go
ahead.
ahead. No,
No,
go
I
ahead.
just want to thank you both. I know that you guys are both doing some amazing things in your market and you're continuing to serve the people. You're not keeping all this to yourself. And so I just want to say that I commend you for putting yourselves out there because I know that this is not easy. So thank you, ladies.
Yeah, no problem. And thanks for being on. You dropped some gems today. If you did not take notes, like if you listened to this episode while you were driving, I want to encourage you to listen to it again when you can take some notes. Or if you're with the AI and they took the notes for you, I'm still learning this technology stuff.
Yeah.
But if you took the notes for you, I encourage you to really go back and listen or read some of the things that Tilisa told us today, because while you may have just overpassed it, this is something that can truly change your life. And I want to encourage all the listeners to take this information and do something with it. Just having this information and sitting on it is not going to change your life. But if you take this information and implement it, it doesn't matter if you make mistakes. In the entrepreneurship world, making mistakes is how we learn. So go out there, do it. If you make a mistake, learn how to do it better next time and keep at it because you can stumble across success. So, Lori, tell the people, how can they reach you if they want to get in contact with you?
Oh, yeah. If you want to talk real estate or invest or, looking for deal flow, any of those things, reach out. I'm on all the social media platforms. Martine will share my email, and look forward to chatting with you.
Okay. And for people that are trying to get in touch with me, the best way is to join my totally free buy and hold investor community on Facebook. It's called The Freedom Inc. The link will be in the show notes. Just answer the 4 questions and I'll let you in. If you do not answer the 4 questions, you don't get in. So I'm letting you know right now, answer my questions and you will have access to a free community of buy and hold investors where we will brainwash you to become a buy and hold investor, because that is where the true wealth is built.
Mm-hmm.
I want to thank Tilisa for being on today. This was an amazing episode. Until next time, Do It Movement listeners. See ya.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning into our show. If you need more hand-holding on your rental property investor journey, book a 15-minute strategy session with Martine. We can see if you're a fit for the Freedom Inc. fam, link in the show notes. Also be sure to join the free Freedom Inc. Facebook group, where each week Martine goes over a real-life rental property investor deal and shows you how the deal was found, how to get the money, and how to make it cash flow, and much more. If you'd like to connect with Lori, be sure to email her at vitalizeproperties@live.com. Until next time, see ya.